Good morning and welcome to the OCR Report's coverage of the second race in the 2024 DEKA FIT Series from Anaheim, California. I am Xander Keene, joined this week by VJ Jones. Excited for what should be a couple of great races here to kick things off this morning. The individual elite men's and women's races. Season opener in Knoxville, Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. Competitive race on the men's side. An early season statement by Morgan Schulz on the women's side. These races, though, should be even better, especially on the women's side. We'll get to that in a second. For the men, a bit more wide open. VJ, I guess, coming into today, what are you most excited to see?
You know, early season races like this are a lot of times just rust busters. You're just trying to see what the body's capable of in this early part of the season because championships aren't until later. So I don't put a lot of weight into bad performances here, but it is exciting to see when there is a good performance. So I'm interested to see what these guys can do. Since we're in hybrid sports, a lot of people are kind of in a high rocks block right now, which is a little bit of different style of training. So bigger engine focus, less specific speed. So if people with an engine focus can pop a good time early season, I'm really excited to see what they can do when it gets closer to championships. So we got a couple fast guys and a couple fast ladies out here. So I'm excited to see what they can do. It's going to be cool. And if you play your cards right and you can pop a good time early season with the training that you're doing now, it might set up for a really exciting championship season.
And exactly what you said about some top contenders prepping for High Rocks World Championships in that sort of more endurance, longer time domain focus right now. That's what we're going to see on the women's side. You've got Lauren Weeks, you've got Vivian Tafuto, two of the top times in the world last year in DEKA FIT. This obviously their first appearance this season here in DEKA FIT as they're coming, right in the middle of the High Rocks season, preparing for High Rocks World. So, yeah, to your point, hard to maybe take too much stock in the results specifically here in this DEKA FIT opener, but still could be a good indication of where they're at, given a different training focus heading into a slightly shorter, more intense race like this.
This race stings, and you have to be comfortable with that sting. If you're really fit, but you're not necessarily exposing yourself to the heat that is DEKA FIT stations and that hardcore running that it takes to win in the middle of the race, it's a hard thing to perform well at without experience. So even if you were a great DEKA FIT athlete last year, if you've not touched that top end for a few months, that sting can bite you sometimes, and it can be really painful. So, yeah, I mean, these are good experienced athletes, so of course they're going to do well, but yeah, sometimes you don't perform at your top end right out the gates.
And similarly on the men's side, most of the field here did not compete in the DEKA FIT season opener in Knoxville, with the exception of Chaz Hatton, who did toe the line in Knoxville. But most of the guys that we'll see today are in that sort of season opener type situation. You've got Issac Sanderson, Glenn Racz, guys with a lot of experience in DEKA FIT from last year, both of them sub 31 times on the board. Tyler Veerman, someone stepping into the DEKA FIT space for the first time. We've seen him in a DEKA mile, but primarily, known as an obstacle course racing athlete, has shifted a little bit toward the longer stuff in the last year or two. But he's expected to start today. You've got Grayson Kilgore as well. He actually has the fastest DEKA strong time of anyone in the field on the men's side. He was top 10 at World Championships in both the mile and the strong. So on the men's side, maybe a bit more wide open. We talk about the women's race. We expect Lauren and Vivian, given sort of their experience, given where they're at in their High Rock season, to be toward the front of that race. But on the men's side, it's a bit more of a wild card because you've got 4, 5, 6 guys who, we don't really know where they're at, and we're going to find out, where they are at this point in the season in what is a bit of a rust-busting season opener.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see what Issac can do today. I've raced him a few times. I did my first High Rocks with him. He whooped me, and I think we're 1-1 as far as racing each other. So he's a great competitor, and I think he's just going to continue to get sharper and sharper in the months and seasons to come. So high ceiling for that guy. But Veerman's a very interesting one. I actually didn't know he was going to be here today, so that's really exciting to see. He's a great athlete, phenomenal engine, but he's built for the mountains. That's just his place. So taking him completely out of his element, dropping him in the middle of a convention center with fitness stations should be really interesting to see. I think he has the tools for it, but maybe just not the experience. So I wouldn't be surprised if for the first couple stations he's up front because that's just what he's used to. But eventually those stations are probably going to catch up to him. We're going to see a little bit of a rough patch in the middle probably, but I'm happy to see him out there. I love when different athletes can kind of experiment with different stuff, and I respect it.
Yeah, I'm sure he's been preparing for this to an extent, but there's definitely a difference between grinding out a climb in the mountains and running a hard 500 before then doing some box step overs or whatever station is next. So definitely a bit of a fish out of water in terms of at least where we've seen him on the race course recently, but excited to see what he can do here. Again, this is the second race of the DEKA FIT Elite season, and we'll actually have another California race in a couple of weeks. So what may be interesting to see coming into that race in a few weeks in Sacramento is, do we see a lot of the same athletes here, given that many of them are West Coast based? There might be some more travel for that one versus this one or vice versa. But with these two races only about 2 weeks apart, could see some athletes use both, or maybe we'll see some new faces in that Sacramento race. Then there's a bit of a break. The next series race is in Austin. That's in early June. Then Carolinas in late June, followed by Midwest, Northeast, and then Florida. So it's a pretty spread out season. And, for some of these athletes, they might only need to show up once to get that time on the board. Other ones might need to feel it again after last year, whatever training they've been doing in the winter, and toe the line 2, 3, 4 times just to make sure that they're in that top 20 or at least a decent position, possibly expecting a roll down. So, yeah, again, early season as we get a look inside the convention center here, everyone's in a little bit of a different spot, and some people might be trying to make it one and done. Others might be trying to put an initial time on the board to attack later on in the season. So I think that the disparity in kind of approach could also lead to an exciting race just because we don't really know what we're going to see until it starts.
For sure. So looking at how I would approach a season. So my goal would be lock in a time early. Like if I was at this race, which I wanted to be originally before I got injured, I was looking to lock in a spot for Worlds. Didn't matter if I was in 3rd place or 20th place. Just get a time that I know is going to stand. And then come back later in the season, probably the latest race that I could, closest to championship time, and get another experience race in just for the reps. But I would try to race as little as possible. That's just how I kind of have approached racing in the last few years, and it's been really successful. But then you have people like Rich Ryan, who wants to run the slowest possible time, save as much energy. He wants to qualify in last place and not show up for another race the rest of the year until World Championships. And then you see a lot of athletes come out and they're going to race 4 or 5 times. Like you said, they like to expose themselves to it. They like the reps. And I think there's a lot of upside to that. And I could see where if you're racing often, that you can get really sharp on these stations, because you can try to recreate these at home and they're always going to be a little bit different than what you experience on race day. So a lot of people that can attend multiple events, I think they have an edge on maybe athletes that might be a little fitter, a little faster than them, because they just have more experience. So yeah, it's a really cool thing to talk about, and a good, I think it deserves its own podcast episode, DEKA FIT season planning.
There we go. We'll propose that to the Race Brain guys for the next couple of weeks. But talking about the course, obviously with DEKA FIT, it's a very similar setup at every event. I think we have a map that we'll pull up here momentarily. But you mentioned the stations are very replicable. If you have the equipment or have access to the equipment, and at this point there's a lot of gyms with them. But the environment of the DEKA FIT arena with the full setup is obviously a bit tougher to recreate. So taking a look at this, If you've watched a DEKA FIT event before, you're very familiar with this, but it's going to be 2 laps, starting with a run, so 500 meters of running before each station, going counterclockwise around, or clockwise, I should say, around the arena. So lunges, a row, box jump, then sit-up, skier, farmer's carry, the air bike, dead ball, and then the tank push. So followed by ram burpees. So, again, most of these athletes are very familiar with the stations, and that's kind of the interesting thing about, the hybrid space in general, especially, DEKA FIT, Hyrox as well. The race is the same every time. So you can prep for it, you can try different things. There's no unknowns. It's not, it's not a mountain race, it's not an obstacle course. There's the element of, you don't know how the race is going to unfold, but the components of the race, you know exactly what to expect. And I think that's an interesting element because you can really come in with a strategy that isn't necessarily as contingent on what everyone else does, unless you're just racing for the win and going with whoever takes it out hot.
Racing is exciting, and a lot of athletes get caught up in racing. I know I do. I want to beat the guy next to me, and if he gets a leg up, that negatively affects me. But in these parts of the season, when it's all time-based for qualifications, this is a time trial. And the athletes that know how to time trial and not let other athletes affect their performance, they're the ones that are going to get the best slots going into world championships. And I think across all of hybrid racing right now, with the time-based kind of qualification systems, hybrid racing is time trialing. And you need to know how to run your own race and execute your own plans perfectly. When you get caught up in races, like my first Hyrox, for example, I got caught up in the race. I got to the sleds. My plan was to go nice and easy, and don't blow up here. And then Issac Sanderson was next to me, and he was pushing the sled real fast. And I'm like, I can't let him out push me here. I'm going to catch up. And I burned myself to the ground right there, second station. And it happens here. It happens in DEKA FIT. I think it's easier to do in DEKA FIT because you're riding that red line so close the entire race that if you cross it for a moment, there's no time in this race to catch your breath and get back into it. So you need to learn to ride that line and know where it is, and no matter what, stick with it.
So you see the men's first wave getting called out right now. So here's a look at some of who we expect to be at least the top contenders at the front of the race. First up, someone we've talked about coming in, Issac Sanderson. I believe he has the fastest DEKA FIT PR of anyone on the start line today with a 30.25. He's someone that, you just talked about him in Hyrox. He's mixed it up in all kinds of events, really coming onto the scene in the last year or two. So expect Issac to be in the mix from the beginning. Grayson Kilgore, someone who has not put a DEKA FIT time on the board, but a world championship competitor in both the mile and the strong last year. I believe he has the fastest strong PR of anyone in the field today. Glenn Racz, experienced racer to say the least, sub 31 DEKA FIT, solid DEKA mile time as well. Again, a competitor in world championships. Chaz Hatton, someone who won all 3 events in the 30 to 34 age group last year, now stepping up into the elite field. We saw him in Knoxville a couple of weeks ago, so he's the one guy getting his second crack at the race. And of course, Tyler Veerman, born for the mountains. We've seen him a lot on the obstacle course racing scene, especially in the last few years, but he's trying something different. We'll see how he adjusts to the sting and the intensity of this race. So those are the top male contenders, as Yancey is giving them final words and directions. There have been some sort of changes in terms of points of emphasis in movement standards, specifically with the lunges and the burpees. I don't know if that's what he's talking about. Obviously, the race itself, these guys are pretty familiar with. But yeah, we're just about a couple of moments away from getting started here. Excited to get this underway.
I'm looking at shoe choice here. I've always struggled with my shoes in DEKA FIT. And it looks like Saucony's winning the battle. So I'm thinking we need a Saucony contract over there at DEKA FIT. It only makes sense. We got Sinisters on the line. We got Endorphin Pros. And it looks like some other kind of just regular trainer out of Veerman over here. So, Yeah. Shoe choice is important in DEKA FIT. So Saucony, reach out to Yancey, hook him up with a contract. He deserves it. He's a good dude. I'll vouch for him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure if it's the Kinvara or what, but Veerman also has a Saucony shoe on, even if it's not
Yes, sir.
A Sinister or one of the Endorphin lines. So, yeah, certainly a preference as we got the national anthem here.
And then hit that to start recording.
No.
Oh, okay. And then where do you... yes. Where do you want me to be? Is there a specific spot?
All right, here we go. Just a couple of moments away from getting underway here from Anaheim, California, or at least they're in Anaheim, neither VJ or IR, but that's the beauty of this broadcasting setup. We've got Glenn Racz there in the front line, as well as Tyler Veerman, some other guys that we're excited to see toe the line here. So looks like some
Issac Sanderson going with the aerodynamic haircut now, and a little wardrobe change from his usual. I'm interested to see how these Masters monsters do. Glenn and John Clark. John Clark has given me a run for my money on a Spartan race course as well. He almost took me down a few years ago in Socal, so he is a beast.
Yeah, I remember there was a race last year where Glenn came out with a gray wig and a walker, or carrying a walker, kind of playing up the elder statesman status. But yeah, he's certainly someone who can still get after it, that's for sure.
Shout out Mark Montano, our DJ out there, our start line MC. Best in the business, in my opinion. I think Mark actually won his age group at the last DEKA event. So a great athlete in his own right. I know he's an age group OCR world champion as well.
Maybe we'll see him towing the line later on once he gets these elite racers off and running. But here we go. Seconds away from getting underway, and they're off. So here we go. The elite men first wave in DEKA FIT Anaheim underway, and as expected, this first run coming out hot.
And this is an aggression that you just don't really see in a lot of other racing styles, at least in our realm. Even the shorter obstacle course races, it's never quite this hot. But everyone's jockeying for position. Everyone wants to make sure they get the inside lines on the corners. They want the prime position going into the first station, which is the lunges. Because the way the stations are set up, they're pretty fair to everybody. But if you can have that ideal line coming in and coming out of the station, that might add an extra second or two on the competitors that you're going to be racing in the back half.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't seem like a lot, 1, 2, 3 seconds coming in and out of every station, that definitely adds up over time and could help you build a gap or conversely fall behind, especially in the first half of this race.
And it looks like we got people we suspected. We got Grayson up front, Issac Sanderson right behind him. Looked like Veerman hanging on at the front. And I hope Veerman knows that running is going to be his ally today, and he doesn't try to overdo it on the stations to make up for his lack there, but rather tries to capitalize on those runs. If he can capitalize there, you might see some good some good racing out of him.
So they're about to come into the first zone. Typically, there's not a ton of separation on these lunges, as you see the top 5 or 6 guys well into their lunges and the rest of the pack coming in behind. So this is 30 reps, 15 each leg, 55 pounds on the back for these guys.
Front of the line, go to the front of the line.
And I'm really digging the new standards of the lunge. It takes a lot of guesswork out of it, a lot of discrepancy between what the correct form is and what everyone else is doing. All you can do is get your front foot in front of the line, knee behind it, and everything's good.
So it looks like we've got at least 2, now 3 racers out. So get a look momentarily. I believe Isaac for sure and Glenn and I think Tyler were out. Could be some other guys as well. See Dustin Needham there putting the ram down and getting after it. So early stages, just a couple of minutes into this race, but these next couple of runs might be where, now that they're compromised a little bit, it could be where we start to see, maybe a few guys pull away a little bit more so than on that first run where everyone was pretty much together.
The first station is just a buy-in. It's more of a technicality. But the interesting thing about DEKA FIT is none of these stations are hard. None of them are hard individually. But if you do anything fast enough, it becomes very difficult, and it can affect the rest of your race. So even something as simple as the lunges, where a slow rep pace versus going as fast as you can, really the result isn't that different as far as time. But totally lost my train of thought. If you go a little too hard on those lunges, it can actually give you a little bit of dead legs heading into the next run. So you have to find that balance on every single station, no matter how easy it is.
It looked like we had Grayson Kilgore and Issac Sanderson, 1-2. They were running side by side. They were the first 2 guys that we saw come across the screen about 20 seconds ago. Glenn Racz behind them. And so we're here at the rower, where we've got the first few competitors in. Yeah, you can see that, as you were saying, VJ, getting in front and getting position will help because you can get that first sort of group of rowers right at the entrance instead of having to run all the way across the zone.
And I'm very much a fan of the strategy on these first couple guys here of doing that U-turn right as you come in, so that when you exit, you have a straight line out and you can just accelerate rather than try to accelerate out of the rower, slow down, make the U-turn, then get back onto the run course. So good strategy here.
So this first line right here, Grayson Kilgore, Issac Sanderson, Glenn Racz, and Tyler Veerman, they were the first 4 in.
Isaac's looking real smooth, real relaxed.
Tyler's definitely pulling a bit harder than some of the other guys.
I would say his pace is not reflecting that, though. It's the guys that look like they're going the slowest on the rower that are typically laying down the best pace.
Yeah, that slower cadence means you're putting more power through every stroke, and it usually can take off quite a bit of time.
Grayson is absolutely yoked. I didn't know he was as massive as he is. That dude is buff.
So we're about 6 minutes into this race as the first few guys, Isaac and Grayson, again coming out 1-2. So early on, that seems to be the group that's slightly opened a gap, with Glenn Racz and Tyler Veerman behind them in 3rd and 4th. So for time context, the Knoxville race, Colin Stiefer won that in 30-34 with Joseph Cotto at 31-23 behind him. Obviously, it's so early on that it's hard to tell what those times need to be for World Championship qualification. That'll sort of start to come together as we get a few more races on the board. But you're really anything under 31, and you're going to be in a pretty good position, even though every year those times are going to go down and more athletes will become more experienced and more competitive. Historically, though, we've seen, sub 31 put you in a pretty good position for qualification.
I would agree with that. I think the majority of qualifiers are going to need to be sub 31 because that's just the way, that's the direction that the field is going, and everyone's going to start getting closer and closer to that 30-minute barrier, to where I think in a couple years you might miss out on Worlds if you're not dropping a sub 30.
You can see a bit of a separation in terms of the time on the station for those top four. Not a whole lot of difference between them, but a bit of a gap between Tyler with a 153, Chaz Hatton a 157, and most of the other competitors right around or just above 2 minutes. So that reflects, sort of the separation that Issac and Grayson have on the field, but then Glenn and Tyler over everyone else behind them. As you see Issac first in on the box step over.
Being tall in this station really helps a ton, and a lot of practice as well, because a lot of these guys are wearing super shoes, which are not known to be the most stable shoe in the world, so you got to really dial in and make sure that you're safe on these, because taking a tumble off the top of the box ain't good for your race, and we've seen top athletes do it. I've stumbled across the box. We've seen Meg Jacoby take a dive off the box because these shoes are just not nimble at all. But you can see we got a lot of athleticism in the field, making sure that everyone's safe, everyone's stepping fast.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the movement itself isn't difficult, especially for these athletes, and the fact that it's so early on in the race. But what helps you for the rest of the race, specifically the running, actually hurts you on this one station, given how soft and squishy the top of the boxes are. You've got that sort of higher stack, carbon plate. A bit of propulsion kind of doesn't necessarily help you in that situation. But obviously these top men navigating that just fine, as Issac out, Grayson a few seconds behind him, heading out on run number 4.
And you can see how relaxed Issac looks right now. He's very much in control. He's in a really good place. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. You need to stay calm and relaxed through the first few stations of this race until the feeling really sets in, and then you can start leaning in.
There's Tyler Veerman again, probably the guy with the least familiarity with this event specifically, but someone with the fitness. Just a matter of sustaining it through the various stations and the back and forth between running and then a different kind of output.
He's just a fit dude. He's going to be good at whatever he tries. If there's a little endurance involved, homie's going to find it.
First railway be done, you think?
Now zone number
Isaac's
4,
a bit of a taller boy, close to 6 feet here. And it's definitely a huge help, because a lot of times if you're a little taller, you don't have to throw the ball very far. You can kind of just do a little toss, or even just touch the target with while still holding onto the ball.
Yeah, I think during the Knoxville race, that's what Kevin Gregory was doing. Basically just kind of touching it, no throw needed, because he's obviously even taller, about 6'3".
Yeah, hard to call Kevin Gregory a tall man. I just call him a giant.
Another fast
Very impressed
station.
with
Issac and Grayson, yeah.
Very impressed with Grayson's pace there. He was looking really good.
It says on the sign behind me.
What's interesting here is we don't really have a pack. At this point, Isaac's got a few seconds separation from Grayson. Grayson a few seconds separation from Glenn. So it's a bit of a 1-2-3 where they can't necessarily work off each other, but they're at least close enough to sort of have the next person in sight, even coming around the tight turns of this run.
And that's all you need. If you can see the person in front of you, then you're still in touch. All it takes is one station, one hiccup to lose all of that time. If they cross the line a little bit, their next run is going to drop 5 seconds. So if you can stay, you just need to stay in sight, stay in touch, and it all can change in a moment.
Especially since we've still got, close to 10 minutes before the assault bike. And that's where you can see, time gaps made up or grow very, very quickly.
And just a nasty combo, like going from the med ball sit-ups, which is really folding you over, affecting your breathing, into ski erg, which is basically the same motion while standing, which you have to find your breathing rhythm again. And this is about the point of the race where you're starting to feel the sting. We're getting into that higher respiration rate, and now you're going to do something where rhythmic breathing is really, really helpful. So trying to stay under control is good, but if everyone wants a fast time, they're going to start pushing about this point of the race.
Yeah, Issac Sanderson about a 15-second lead, but Glenn has caught up on Grayson. So as we were just saying, VJ, having the other person in sight is all you need. Glenn seemed like he came out a bit stronger off of those sit-ups, put a little bit more out on the run, and hard to tell if that was Grayson holding back, if it was Glenn pushing harder, or just, one of them being in a better spot right now. But that's, since these early separations formed, it's probably the most movement we've seen up the field as Tyler now comes in still holding on to 4th place.
And Glenn's one of those competitors that you will never break him. He's one of the few guys that if you get out of sight on a course out in the mountains, he won't back off at all. He will put his head down and race as hard as he can all the way. He never lets up. And that's a scary person to have behind you, because he's going to do everything in his power for every moment of the race to catch you and just perform his best every day, every time. So I would not be surprised if in the next run or two, he's fighting for that 2nd place spot.
Issac is about a minute and a half into this skier, so he should be coming off in the next 20 seconds or so.
I'm very impressed with how the DEKA FIT field has evolved on the ski erg. You used to see a lot of very interesting strategies out there, and now we're getting a little more uniform, a little more efficient across the board.
And the ski erg is one station that, of course, it's present in High Rocks as well. So if you're training for hybrid, regardless of where you are in your season, you're putting in work on that machine, and that's going to help your technique and just your ability to handle the movement over time for sure. We're hitting the 15-minute mark of this men's race, so roughly halfway in terms of time domain, and of course just above halfway in terms of components of the race. There's Issac Sanderson on run number 6 with the farmer's carry coming up next.
There we go. Veerman's out, looking a little rocked. And the farmer's carry is a very underestimated station. I've made the mistake myself. It's not hard to do. It doesn't even feel hard while you're doing it. But for some reason, just the way the weight is and the way you brace with your core, you can just get hammered on that station and come out and run your slowest run of the day for some reason. You'll think you're catching your breath, or you think, I'm going to make a move here, I'm going to just start running with these weights. And suddenly, you feel really bad. And you start running really terribly, trying to catch your breath, knowing that you're going into the assault bike in the very next station.
Yeah, just a minute ago, you were talking about how with the sit-ups and the ski erg back-to-back, very sort of full over four heavy movements, and you know what's ahead of you with the assault bikes. I think there's definitely a scenario where you're just underestimating the farmer's carry because the movement itself conceptually isn't difficult. These weights aren't, particularly heavy for these athletes, but it can just hit you a bit harder than expected. Although right now it looks like Issac seems to be hanging on pretty strong.
Look at that muscular man. just moving with those weights. This is what he looks like coming out of the grocery store. It's just an everyday thing for him.
Saw Grayson and Glenn come in the background pretty close together, and yeah, you see that here. Grayson Kilgore maybe moving a little faster.
This is the fight we wanted to see. Look at Glenn, head down, quick turnover, just trying to catch him.
Just making sure that Grayson knows, hey, I'm still here. We got a long way to go.
Pretty soon we're going to start seeing that classic Glenn head bobble, and when we start seeing that, he's going to be dangerous.
There's Tyler Veerman still in 4th place, but he's got to be careful because he's got someone coming up somewhat on his heels here.
We got quite the pack right here. Lots of athletes, really, really close.
And this is something that we saw in Knoxville as well, that, yeah, the very top of the race on both sides, there was some more separation, but that kind of 5 through 9 range, a lot of back and forth, and we'll probably end up having sort of this mid-pack all on burpees at the same time, which will make for an exciting finish, you know, for those valuable spots.
Looks like Isaac's rolling into the air bike here.
Okay, you can see Issac just a little bit ahead of everyone else on most of these stations, and that combined with his running ability that we've seen, that's helped him open a pretty sizable lead at this point as he's working his way through these 25 cows.
FIT uses the Assault Bike Elite, which is different than your traditional assault bike that you'll see at your gym, or the Rogue Echo bike, which I personally like, or I train on the Echo bike. A different machine. And I think there's a huge advantage to knowing this machine, so those people that race more often throughout the year are going to have that advantage. So I go off RPMs. I'm trying to hit a certain RPMs on the bike, master that, and move in and move on, right? With the Echo bike, you can hold about 10 RPMs higher than you can on the Assault Bike Elite at the same effort. The Elite is so painful. I'm guessing it was Yancey's choice to pick the hardest bike he could find and just make it the most painful experience possible.
And just looking at these top 3 guys, it definitely seemed like Issac was much smoother in terms of his movement pattern than both Glenn and Grayson, and I think he probably figured, hey, I've got this lead. As long as I'm steady, they're not going to catch me, so let me just make sure I don't totally blow myself out here on this station because, you know, he's been running well so far, and I think it seems like he's used that opportunity because we see Grayson here on the left side of the screen kind of pause for a second. He's really upping his cadence when he can as Glenn in the background comes out in 2nd place. So Glenn Racz has caught up and now passed Grayson Kilgore, who's still feeling a little bit working through these final few calories.
It may seem like a good idea at the time to stand up out of the seat. It's really not. It never works. And usually it used to be a sign of, I have the wrong bike seat height. I need to stand up out of the seat. But that's just this guy dying, and he's trying to use his weight to the best of his ability to keep moving. And it's just, it never works out the way you'd hope. And I love the new system where they put the bike seats all the way down. You come in and everyone has to set their own bike height, because there's nothing worse than coming in knowing you need a 9 or a 10 and sitting on a 5. And you have no leverage.
Yeah, I think we saw that in Knoxville. Morgan Scholes came in and hopped straight on the bike without realizing that it was on the lowest possible setting. She's definitely one of the taller athletes in the women's field, so she looked uncomfortable, but at that point, was well ahead of the rest of the field, and so it obviously worked out for her. But yeah, to that point, the 1 to 2 seconds just to make sure that you're getting on and you have it in the right spot can definitely help. You look at the air bike, Issac again a solid 108, Glenn a strong time as well, and there's the separation as Glenn has now pulled himself into second place, and with the way that Grayson was coming out of the station, kind of walking and catching his breath, an opportunity for Glenn here to kind of put a stamp on this second place on this run and through the next couple of stations.
Glenn's got it. Glenn's locked in. As far as I'm concerned, he's locked up second. But I'm curious to see Issac. He looks smooth. He looks comfortable. He's not respirating super high. You're not seeing him have to take one of those like crazy deep breaths when you're starting to cross the line. He's just looking like he's doing the work necessary. And a 108 on the bike, that's a great frickin' place to be.
Yeah, Issac has just seemed like the smoothest mover through this race. And that's what we talked about coming in, is that you have to ride that line and understand, okay, how hard can I push or should I push to make sure that I can keep that level of effort and stay steady? Glenn looks pretty strong as well, but Issac definitely is someone who stuck his nose in these races a bit last year, has that experience. He's certainly executed a strong race so far today, and we're seeing that given how far he is ahead of this field at this point.
Yeah, he's not by himself, but that's what it feels like for him. He's getting into the stations way ahead, and that's giving him the opportunity to, like we talked about at the beginning, time trial. He's just time trialing. He knows the effort that he needs to put out on these stations. He's not getting caught up in a race. He's not feeling like he has to push beyond anything. He's staying where he's comfortable and putting out the effort necessary. And that's going to lead to a really, really solid time today.
A look here at 2 and 3 as Glenn Racz finishes up his last ball over, so he is out in second place. Grayson Kilgore working through it as Tyler Veerman comes in fourth. So Grayson right now still holding on to that third place spot, although he may need to pick it up later on depending on how Tyler's feeling. Obviously, he's still well ahead of Tyler at this point, but
there's a little bit of hustle out of Tyler that I'm liking to see here. Like, Grayson looks like he's just trying to manage, and Tyler is trying to get that ball up quickly. So on this next run, there could be a little bit of shift there. If he can keep the effort, keep that turnover, there's a chance he could close in a little bit. But the sleds are definitely going to lend themselves to Grayson's strength.
And here's Issac Sanderson, first one in, of course, into the tank push and pull. So this is 5 down and backs. Again, new equipment for DEKA FIT this year.
We got to test these out at the World Championships last year. It seemed like it was going to be so much easier when we tested it in the warm-up stations for Worlds last year. It was not. I got there and it was so tough. I don't know why, but it definitely, there's a different way to pull it. It's going to take a little bit of a different strategy than the tanks used to.
Issac continues to be the fastest through the stations. Dead ball wallover is not somewhere where there's going to be a ton of a gap between the top and the rest of the field, but the only guy under a minute. And again, given that he's sort of pacing himself at this point, doesn't really have anyone to work off of, impressive that he's able to stay on it and continue to deliver the fastest station times.
He's in control. He's doing what he needs to do, and sometimes that's exactly what you need. Like, my best times have come when I was running by myself. Just not being pushed too far at any point, being patient with it, and executing in the back half of this race, which is what he's doing. I mean, look at him. He's relaxed. He's smooth.
Glenn and Grayson are together, but not neck and neck. Glenn is at least 1, if not 2 lengths ahead of Grayson. So, BJ, you were talking about how this is a station that definitely suits Grayson's size and strength, and maybe he can make up some of that time here. It seems like he is definitely pushing faster than Glenn is.
And Glenn is a length ahead, so he knows where he's at, and all he needs to do is try to match his pace, or not even that, just don't let him leave the station at the same time. And I think Glenn's a seasoned racer, experienced athlete. He knows exactly what he needs to do, and he's going to hold that position.
Looks like Tyler Veerman missed the entrance. We saw him coming back from the other direction. So that's a couple of seconds as he's trying to hold on to 4th place. We'll see if that gives our 5th place athlete a little bit of a light at the end of this tunnel, but Tyler's still hanging in there.
I think that's known as race brain. So Issac Sanderson out on that last run. Got 1 lap to go. And we are just under the 28-minute mark here. How are we feeling about his chances for a sub-30?
I mean, I know they've emphasized the movement standards a bit for burpees, which slows things down a tiny bit, but the way that he's been moving, I mean, he's probably going to have 90 seconds to work through those 20 burpees, so I think he's in a good spot at this point.
I think so, too. I think we might see it here. You can see the different strategy on these sled pulls. Some people walk it straight back, which kind of loads your quads a little more, and some people try to row to save their legs a little bit. And a combination of both tends to be the fastest method. Here we go. These are the
Issac
first.
Sanderson, 85 seconds to work with to work through these 20 burpees, and based on this pace, he is well on his way. We'll see if he can hold strong through these final 14 or so.
He looks so comfortable. With the new burpee form, it makes you look a lot less frantic. We used to look ridiculous out there just trying to duck your head under the weight and just slam it back down on the ground. It's a lot more uniformity here, which I think is going to, for the optics, it's going to look a lot better for the sport long run.
Yeah, in the past we've seen, legs end up on the other mat next to you and then someone else is trying to come in, but a lot smoother here for Issac, and that's a credit to both the movement standards and the way that he has run this race.
I'm very impressed that he's
through
keeping
these
his
burpees.
feet close together. That's a lot of strength. It's definitely easier to keep your legs a little wider. We learned that from the Spartan race days, but he's just repping them out.
Issac Sanderson just over 29:40, an impressive showing, and this is the first time that he really looks tired at this point. Just a smooth effort, timed it perfectly, paced it well, and puts an incredible time on the board for this season opener. A guy that had gone sub 31 before, but now breaks that 30-minute barrier with some room to spare.
That's a big PR from 30:25 down to 29:40. Look at Grayson ripping these burpees apart here. Glenn is hurting. We need some faster reps here, Glenn. Come on now.
This is our podium, but still to be determined what order second and third are going to finish in, as Tyler Veerman in 4th place.
Tyler looks like he's doing these strict. He is. Not touching the knees to the ground. Military style. Glenn holds on to take second place. Love to see it.
There's Glenn Racz in zone 11 as Grayson Kilgore finishes his last couple of burpees. So a strong effort by Grayson in his first DEKA Fit to work through a bit of a tough go on the bike and hang on for that 3rd place position. Fastest burpee time for Grayson. Yeah, you mentioned he looked good and strong on those burpees, and that is borne out by the time.
It's interesting. Grayson looked like he was going so much faster on his reps than Issac, yet Issac looked so smooth and was only 2 seconds behind. It's a testament to his fitness right now.
Yeah, it's kind of the story of the race. It never looked like Issac was putting in as much effort as the other guys in this field, yet he was a little bit faster, or in this case, only 2 seconds slower on these burpees. And Tyler Veerman slams it down and goes the wrong way. So again, still getting used to the race environment here. I wonder if he missed a lap at some point.
I think he missed a lap, so they're like, just make up the lap and come back in. Very interesting. Oh, that sucks. Imagine running after the Ram burpees. I think he's the first one to do it. He's got to be hurting on that lap. Aaron Nowlin coming in.
Go, Blake. Turn it up, Blake. Turn it up. Empty the tank.
And we talked about it when these guys were all on the farmer's carry, that we'd have a pack in burpees from that, roughly 5th to 9th range, and that's what we're seeing here. So Joshua Gonzalez and John Howard, those guys are going to take 4th and 5th because Tyler, I guess, missing that lap.
Tough little buy-in race for Veerman here.
And it looks like Tyler is now finally across. Certainly not the way that he wanted this to end.
I like the wide stance out of Aaron Nowlin, but he doesn't get his feet quite high enough to give him leverage, so he keeps scooting backwards down the mat. By the end of these burpees, he won't be on the mat anymore.
And that's not going to feel too good if you get your knees right on the concrete to end this race.
There he goes. That last 20 feet from the mat to the line is kind of a painful little stretch there. You're just on jelly legs. You just kind of hurl your body across the line.
And here's Dustin Needham finishing off his last few burpees. And yeah, this sort of pack that we've just seen come across in the last minute or so, I think these are a lot of the guys who they might be end up racing more often, and they put this time on the board, and it's something for them to attack later on in the year because, this 32, 33 minutes, probably not going to be fast enough to get them into Worlds, but it's also not far enough away that it may not be out of reach. So I think we'll probably see a lot of these guys at several races throughout the year.
Issac. I love the new aerodynamic look going on. It's fantastic. All right. I knew you did that just for this race. You wanted to take down that wind resistance and make sure that the headband sat really nice. So walk us through it out there. What we were checking out was how smooth you looked through all the stations. It never at any point did you look too pressed. You actually looked like possibly one of the slower people on each station, yet consistently laying down the fastest time through every station. Walk us through it a little bit.
Hey, well, slow is steady. Steady is slow. I don't know, man. I've been training really hard for High Rocks coming up and DEKA, working on my compromise, running a lot, and been getting some help from Ryland. So fitness is finally popping. Yeah, it feels good. I tried to push the runs a little bit. Definitely fell off after the assault bike, but yeah, man, I don't know. I just felt fit today and had some fun, smiled and suffered. So it's a good way to start a weekend.
And you found yourself in front of the race fairly early on. There was a close grouping behind you, but sort of when you're off in front, do you think that helped you sort of maintain the effort that you wanted to and not necessarily get caught up in what anyone else was doing out there?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. There's some pros and cons to it, obviously. I can't get pushed by them as much. But really, I'm just trying to be in my zone regardless of where other people are at. I'm running my race, working my best, trying to stay on my paces. So it helps have people there to work with you or work beside you to help you kind of get pushed. But I wasn't really aware of where they were at, to be honest with you. I can hear Jeff on the announcement every once in a while call out when people are coming in and going out, but for the most part, I'm just pretty locked in, trying to focus on the next step and next stride, and stay in my zone.
How did you feel that running 8 hours in Saudi Arabia helped your DEKA FIT prep today?
Oh, it's very transferable. I think I could have done that back-to-back weekends. No, it's different stages of training, right? I worked diamond-based training over the winter time and kind of used that for Saudi, and then the past 4 weeks have been a grind, man. I've been putting in lots of work, trying to get ready for this Anaheim High Rocks in, I guess, a month now. And just working on that sort of fitness. So it helps in terms of progression, but that definitely is not directly transferable to this sort of race.
Well, you were looking great out there, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks for commentating and taking time out of your guys' day. I appreciate it a lot, and I know everyone else does.
Absolutely.
Catch you at the next
one. Great job out there today. Solid
Yes, sir.
time on the board, great effort, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you a bit later on in the season. And good luck also in Anaheim coming up for High Rocks.
Let's go over these women. Can't tell if they're about to. Oh shoot, they're about to go.
Okay. Women's race about to take off, and we have arguably the greatest hybrid athlete of all time on the start line. Always exciting to see a GOAT making an appearance.
So Lauren Weeks and Vivian Tafuto starting on opposite sides of this start line. We'll see who takes it out in front. Certainly Lauren Weeks, no stranger to getting out in front early. So here we go. The women are off.
Let's show some women's while we're letting them do that first lap.
So we'll take a look at some of who we expect to be the contenders here. And Katie Duke, someone who we've seen in a number of races. She was a World Championship competitor in both the FIT and the mile in 2023. She's someone maybe looking to bring that PR down a little bit, maybe use some of the faster women as a bit of rabbits here in this race. Lauren Griffith, a strong contender as well, experience in all three events, podium finisher in both the mile and the FIT in last year's World Championship. And Vivian Tafuto, who was not able to compete in the World Championship last year, but maybe was the favorite coming into that race based on who was going to start. And she has the third fastest time ever behind I believe Tara Jackson and Meg Jacoby. And so Vivian, someone who we expect to be up there and pushing this pace. And then, of course, Lauren Weeks, three-time winner here at DEKA FIT, multiple-time High Rocks World Champion as well. She is on fire right now in the hybrid space. Haven't seen her in DEKA FIT in a little bit, but she can certainly bring it. And we'll see her as these women will approach the first zone here momentarily.
I love watching Lauren race. It's just a different experience, man. Like, the aggressive run style is just so cool to see, and you're like, that doesn't look sustainable, yet she just does it for an hour straight, mixed in with all these different stations. So I'm interested to see if she pushes the pace and runs a little faster here than she would at High Rocks, because she's already moving so fast for that long race. So this should be really exciting. I'm looking forward to see what she can lay down here, and to see if anyone can give her a run.
And worth pointing out, also wearing the Endorphin Pro, certainly the DEKA FIT shoe of choice that we've seen here.
The only weird thing is you can see there's dual padded mats right now for these lunges, and everyone has to stand on them because that's where the tape line is. And these shoes, as I said, are not very stable, so the balance and the wobble can be a little interesting standing on those mats. And you'll see a little bit of, like, as you try to rep faster and switch your feet quickly, you'll start to see a little bit of that ankle shake.
Looks like, yeah, we had about a top four come out of this in fairly close proximity. The two Laurens up in front, along with Katie Duke and Vivian Tafuto. A few other athletes fairly close behind them. Early stages of this race. We may start to see a bit more separation over these next few runs.
I like seeing in the first station that like 2 seconds slower time, like staying relaxed on it, not pushing, because 2 seconds in that station ain't going to make or break the race, but that can be just relaxing enough to keep the heart rate down a few beats and keep you ready to push later on.
There is a little bit of traffic out on course with, I think, a second wave of the elite men's race still going on. Not too much, though, so it shouldn't slow these women down very much, but it is an additional element that they have to deal with in certain situations.
I'm going to start showing up to DEKA Fits with blue flags that I can hand out to some of the spectators. And when a faster person is coming around, they can wave the blue flag just like they do in auto racing. Let them pass. You're getting lapped.
Especially because the people who still are on course, they're feeling it, right? They're in the later stage of this race, so it may be hard to recognize when someone's coming up behind you, but
the awareness isn't there. When you're seeing red, you're not seeing anything else. And see the strategy out of Lauren Weeks, turning that corner, sitting in that first one so she can accelerate directly out of the zone. That's a veteran move right there.
Yeah, meanwhile, Vivian and Katie, who we see here, they're going to have to run out and then hang a left, which will, a couple of seconds that they won't be able to get up to full speed, and just a little advantage for Lauren coming out of this one.
I'm loving how close this race is. I think we're going to have a little bit more exciting of a show in this women's field.
In Knoxville a couple of weeks ago, it was very clear early on that Morgan Scholes was a level above the other competitors, and definitely more depth of field at the top and even sort of the middle of this wave. So, yeah, like you just said, this should lead to a pretty exciting race, because even on the men's side, we had that sort of little gaps open up early, and the guys weren't really running together except for Grayson and Glenn in the back half of that race. But if there's this pack early on and through the halfway point, if we can get, 3, 4, maybe even 5 women close together coming into the bike, this should be very exciting.
And once again, look how relaxed Lauren looks. You'd think she's just out for a nice little Sunday row. Yet she's probably laying down the fastest time or right there at that top level. But looking more relaxed than anyone else in the station.
And she's used to rowing later in the race for twice as long, so this probably felt nice and relaxing for her at this point of the race.
Just about 10-second lead coming out of zone 2 already. It's impressive, especially with how stacked the field is, coming out 10 seconds ahead. That's some Rylan-esque stuff that we're looking at there.
And as you were saying, much like we saw from Issac, it didn't look like she was putting in an effort that would lead to a 10-second gap, but she just has that efficiency of movement and able to work through it.
And what, she's 2 months out from a world championship, or a month and a half? So she's getting into, world-class shape and probably best in the world shape right now. So we're going to get to witness some really special stuff out here today. 2:02. That's the same times that we were seeing out of a lot of the elite men today.
And Vivian, who I think came into the first station and maybe even the second one in 4th place, able to start to make up a little bit more time. So I think maybe she throttled back a tiny bit at the very start of the race, has experience in this format. We'll see how that plays out for her as we progress here.
And from what I've seen at High Rocks, she races similarly there too. She doesn't come out the gates and try to lead it right off the bat. She kind of stays there, witnesses everything, and waits to make her move. And I think she just lets her fitness do the talking. She doesn't try to force it. So she knew, like, by the 3rd, 4th station, I'm going to be back in this race right away. And Lauren's not the tallest athlete here. She's incredibly fit, but height definitely makes a difference on this station.
By my count, about a 15-second lead for Lauren coming in based on the time when she started and when Vivian did. And Vivian a few seconds ahead of third place here.
And right back to it, that aggressive forward lean. Vivian out in second. There we go, and that looked like a little bit of a move being made there with that faster jumping, bouncy strategy over the box. For third.
Yeah, third and fourth place definitely looked bouncier, as you were just saying, than Vivian did, but Vivian, of course, able to still come out in second place with plenty of time left to go in this race. Yeah, sub 40 seconds for Katie and Teresa, so that more explosive form, at least helping them on that station. Again, you know, who knows how much of a difference 2 to 5 seconds will make at this point in the race, but
just a testament to Lauren's fitness. She's a little bit of a shorter athlete and still, you know, 41 seconds right there up close to one of the top times there. That's wild. Here we go, zone 4 next. We got med ball sit-ups.
Vivian Tafuto there, certainly capitalizing on the run. I think she's opened up a bit more of a gap on third place, Lauren Griffith.
Not looking frantic, not pushing too hard, just smooth, comfortable effort.
Yeah, this is the start of that sort of back-to-back core-heavy set of stations, but if you can move smoothly through the med ball sit-ups like Lauren is doing right now, that's definitely going to help her sort of handle the skier coming up here in a couple of minutes.
There's a little bit of a difference in the rate of reps going on here, and you can see how far Lauren's throwing it versus, or I guess, close Lauren versus far Lauren.
Yeah, and Vivian, of course, is probably the tallest athlete in this field, almost able to just touch the ball against the target there.
Looked like she made up a little bit of ground there. That wasn't too bad. This is a station that you can kind of attack. If you're willing to kind of smash your back and shoulders into the ground and really like get after it, you can move a little bit, but it's also something that just tiring out your core can affect you in those later stages of the race, going into skier, going into farmer's carry where you have to brace with it again. Realistically, it kind of affects your breathing and your ability to kind of catch your breath and control your breath through some of those next 2-3 stations.
Certainly a relaxed effort from Lauren Weeks on this station, as evidenced by that 54-second split. Vivian Tafuto, by my count, was about 8 seconds ahead of Lauren Griffith coming out. So relatively close race between those two. Certainly Lauren Griffith in striking distance of second place.
Looks like we got a fight right there. That's going to be fun to see later in the race. Oh, she doesn't have her feet underneath the bar. She's just muscling this. Gnarly.
Lauren Weeks into the ski erg, station number 5, 500 meters on the docket.
I'm really trying to study her technique right now, learn something, evolve myself watching the best in the world compete.
One and two next to each other, Lauren Weeks and Vivian Tafuto. Lauren Griffith came in on the other side, so again, the top two athletes had that advantage of being able to come out of the station straight into the run without turning around.
Lauren's arms come really back behind her. It's almost like when she stands up, she kicks her arms up above her head so she doesn't have to use her shoulders as much to lift them, which is kind of an interesting idea. Makes the reps
like
slightly
Vivian,
slower.
Right, but maybe similar to the rower, kind of you get a little bit more power through each stroke, whereas Vivian's kind of just coming down basically to her own shin.
And maybe that's a hybrid engine thing, because other Lauren 2, is doing the same thing.
Yeah, Lauren Griffith and Katie Duke, 3-4, there next to each other.
No.
That powerhouse.
I think Weeks is out. She's gone. Running away with it. Second and third still in the station. Wow, she must have crushed that.
Yeah, Vivian is still working through these final meters. And so Vivian finishes now at about 15:45. With third place Lauren Griffith still in there. So about a 10-second edge for Vivian. Similar gap they had coming out of sit-ups.
2:06. So probably about 2 flat pace on the ski erg there with transition. That's pretty awesome. And it's interesting thing about DEKA FIT with the 500 meter distance on the stations, it's not quite enough time for you to settle in really. Like if it was 1Ks, you'd be able to kind of like catch your breath a little bit, but it's like you're running in and then you have to hit the thing, and then as soon as you get comfortable on it, you got to leave. So a special pain associated with old DEKA FIT there.
Yeah, it's like every single thing. Obviously, some of the stations are a little bit shorter, your box step overs and sit-ups, but a lot, even the sort of more work capacity stations, you're doing like 90 seconds to 2 minutes of work, whether it's the running or the station, yet you don't have enough time to really get into a rhythm with anything, because then you're back to doing something else. And now Lauren Weeks making quick work of this farmer's carry.
I'm curious to see how far she gets through this before second place rolls in. Wow.
The answer is just about the entire way. Lauren
She
puts
just
him
let
down
second place
right
know
as
she
Vivian
was.
picks him up. Yeah.
Yeah, she just let her know you're out of this. So now it's just a time trial, just like the men's race. She's out there by herself. And the thing about Lauren is she's so fit that she can actually race in these. Like if you want to throw punches, she'll surge, and she can handle it. because she's just got so much engine, so much strength. Today she doesn't have to, but she's capable of it. But this is still a close battle. This is one mistake or one good station away from being neck and neck. I'm excited for it.
And we're about to see it coming up here because they've got one more run and then the assault bike. And that's where this gap could be made up. Again, Lauren Griffith hanging in there in third place. In some ways, this is now playing out similarly to what we saw on the men's side, where Issac maybe didn't pull away quite as much as Lauren is here, but then Glenn was able to stay in contact with Grayson in that men's race and end up making the pass on the bike. Vivian herself, an experienced athlete, we'll see how this plays out, but Lauren Griffith finding herself in a very similar position to where Glenn was in this men's race earlier. And for context,
Katie looks
Lauren
like
Weeks,
a collegiate runner that got yoked.
Lauren's DEKA FIT PR 33:28, so quite a bit behind Vivian, 40 seconds ahead of her in terms of fastest time. But again, Lauren has been focusing a little bit more on high rocks despite putting in some work here in DEKA. So we'll see where she's at time-wise, in these last few stations. But she's certainly putting out a strong effort. And again, just like Issac, kind of looking smooth and steady on this bike so far.
I think that's the move, especially on the elite. It's so much more difficult to put out 3 to 5 RPMs on this than just staying comfortable, and it just costs so much. You can put a little surge in there, and it's just going to bite you. It's never going to help you out. You see even the fastest bike guys, say like Riker, hammers the bike and he gets a big advantage. He can come out 20 seconds ahead of the guy next to him, but he is always coming out absolutely beat. And it usually takes him that entire run to get back to pace, which is a interesting risk to take. If you have that in your arsenal, it sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. Is just get that separation and hope it sticks. But she's got this race in the bag. She's just trying to stay consistent and nail a good time. So I think she's doing the right thing. But Vivian, goodness gracious, look at that.
Yeah, just the difference in cadence, and Vivian adding to that cadence with a longer reach. So, that goes to show you someone who's sort of comfortably out in front versus someone racing for position. And kind of like we saw with Grayson earlier, now Vivian's slowing down a bit, and Lauren Griffith choosing the other side, trying to not really worry about what anyone else is doing. All she can see is herself at this point.
That's smart. Just do your own thing, focus on your screen, put in the work. But this is also a bit of a weight game. But you see that heavy push at the start? Look at her now, doing the Killian wobble, the Killian wiggle on the bike there.
Right about 21:30 for Lauren Weeks to come out of it, and with the way she's moving coming out of this station, she has pretty much sealed the deal here. And now the question becomes, who is going to come out in second place with Vivian in front here and then Lauren Griffith in the background? There's Lauren.
It's so weird coming from a running background and then doing obstacle racing for so long to be in the middle of a race and then just like stop and sit in one place on the rower. I'm just sitting there doing my thing. It's such an interesting thing that you're still racing, but you're not getting anywhere. It's definitely a different feel. But look at that, 20 seconds faster for Vivian than Lauren Weeks on that station. I don't know what the gap was leading into that. I mean, she had a full farmer's carry, so not quite going to catch her, but that's a big move being made.
And good work from Vivian to stick with it, because we saw her, really crank up the RPMs and put in that work early, then settle down a bit. But I think she got that momentum moving and was able to stick with it and hang in there. And it looks like she even made up a bunch of time on Lauren Griffith. So impressive work from Vivian to kind of do what she needed. We saw her, she was feeling it, but as long as she's come out all right, she's put herself in a good position here.
Yeah, I think the bike is the last station where you can make big moves in this space. Like everyone's kind of dialing in the rest of the stations. Everyone's close to about where you're going to be able to be as fast as you can on these stations, especially the cardio machines. But the bike, that's still the one where, you know, if you perfect coming in and hitting your calories in 25 seconds and you can master that, like that's still a weapon that we haven't seen utilized, at least in fit.
Like you were saying a second ago, VJ, you know, you're sitting there on the bike putting out a ton of effort, then you get right back into the run, then you come to a stop again, your heart rate comes down, you got to pick up this ball 20 times. It's just a very strange, you know, it's not like Spartan race where you're flowing through obstacles still at a high heart rate and you're always moving forward. It's a very different dynamic here in this style of event.
This is a mental challenge right here. It's not a difficult thing to do, but you just did something that really raises your heart rate. And then you had to run and try to survive it, keep your pace, knowing that the next station's a little bit of a break. But you have those bars you have to step over. You have this crossbar that you need to negotiate with the ball. So it's about just staying as efficient as you can and not making a mistake, because all it takes is catching your toe, coming around that beam one time to expend a ton of energy, break your rhythm, change your respiration a little bit. So it's more just like staying mentally focused, staying engaged, not letting anything go, and you'll naturally recover on this station no matter how hard you really go. But keeping up a hustle, finding the rhythm, that's the big win here.
Second place in the background, third place in the foreground, Vivian Tafuto and Lauren Griffith. Trying to finish out this race strong. We've had a top three emerge from about station 2 onwards. And then Lauren Weeks, of course, at the front of the race has kind of put her stamp on this one early as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Vivian out in 25:30. We'll see what that gap is. Again, she was much faster than Lauren Griffith on the bike. And may have done just enough to be able to sustain that effort and keep that gap through this station, which is going to put her in a great spot. So about 23 seconds right now, Vivian Tafuto ahead of Lauren Griffith in second place.
Lauren Griffith making up some good time there, though. Trying to get basically made up a third of that time from the bike. And she's looking good. She had that hustle, right? She had that rhythm through that station. So that bodes well for the next run and being able to attack going into push and pull.
I think that's Katie Duke kind of all alone in fourth place.
See, that's what I'm talking about with the rhythm. You catch one of those, like she tried to catch the ball, which made her brace her core, hold her breath for a moment to try to brace that way. Like that was a little bit of effort that is actually going to cost you when you're riding so close to the line.
Something like that happens, and maybe you only have 5 or 6 ball overs left, but those 5 or 6 are going to feel much harder than they would have ordinarily. Lauren Weeks working her way through the tank push and pull. And this is where we can start looking at the clock a bit, because again, 33:28 is her PR coming in.
I think that's falling today. Absolutely. She is she's on a tear right now.
Yeah, kind of like sub 30 has been for the men, sub 33 similar for the women, where there's not that many athletes who have hit this time. Certainly Lauren Weeks, someone who's been capable of it for a long time, but an opportunity for her to take a pretty big chunk out of her PR here in this, what has turned out to be a time trial style race, just like we saw from Issac Sanderson earlier.
A push and half a pull separating second and third right now. So with a little bit of hustle, this could get really, really close here.
Yeah, and because Lauren can see Vivian sort of pulling back as she's pushing, she sort of has an idea of whether or not she's making up ground as she continues to work through each rep.
She's close. She's made up a couple seconds. It's going to be exciting.
So just for the record, 32:27 is the women's world record for Meg Jacoby. I bring that up because Lauren Weeks is on her last run just over 29 minutes into this race.
She's really not letting Meg hold on to any of those records, is she?
They're about to
gonna
go
be close.
toe-to-toe in Nice, and Lauren making another bit of a statement here in the DEKA FIT arena.
Wow. All right, I think this is it for Vivian. Vivian's out, 29:45.
So what, one more down and back for Lauren Griffith, we think?
I think this is it.
Oh, you're right.
Yep,
She's out.
she's
as well.
out.
So Lauren Griffith hanging in there.
Yeah, 12 to 13 second gap there. Kind of a little substantial there. So we'll see. We'll see if she can attack this next run and close that gap up a little bit. She might as well. She got nothing to lose. Just sell out.
A few seconds ago, we saw Lauren Weeks certainly putting out the effort on her last run.
Push me, Mark.
Got to pull it back with the straps. Volunteer. Uh-oh. Uh-oh there. That looked kind of quick, though. I like that. If that's allowed, I'm doing that.
So here we go. Lauren Weeks, it's about 90 seconds to go if she wants to set a new women's DEKA FIT world record. She has 18 burpees left.
Just throwing that overhead like a paper towel roll.
Continuing to
think
look
they
smooth as she has all race.
I think they gave her an empty one. I think that's styrofoam. It's looking a little, it's going a little too quick there.
Yancey firing up the crowd. Lauren Weeks more than halfway done with these burpees.
It's too early in the morning. Here we go. 18.
Will she go
19.
sub 32?
Come on,
It's
come
gonna
on.
be
We're
close.
sub 32. Let's go. Yeah.
And there it is, Lauren Weeks, 31:58, unofficially, either way, the fastest ever in women's DEKA FIT. Most likely the first one to ever go under 32 minutes. She broke away early, she got it done, and she seems fine. She's not laying on the ground. At this point, she's like, only 32 minutes of effort. I'm used to going for 50-something. So an absolute
time to be
impressive showing
alive
for
right
Lauren
now.
Weeks. As we now have our second and third place athletes in the burpee zone to finish out their day.
This is so crazy. Like, it's just every time she steps on a start line, you're like, you expect something crazy to happen. And there it is, another world record, another win. It's just like, I don't know, it's just a real special time to be watching hybrid sports.
And Vivian Tafuto in under 33 minutes, so about
Wow.
10 to 15 seconds off for PR, but a strong effort. And how about Lauren Griffith sticking with it, finishing within 10 seconds of second place? even though it wasn't back and forth, still a great race between those two as they sort of push each other to strong times in podium position.
Wow. That was awesome. A lot of studs showing up to Anaheim.
Yeah, we figured it was going to be a competitive race when we hopped on this morning. Didn't know we were going to get a world record and then a throwdown between second and third place, but we got that, and that has me fired up for the rest of this DEKA FIT season because Lauren's now put a time on the board. We've got two athletes who have certainly stamped their qualification, and we'll see how much we see of Vivian and Lauren later on in the season. But impressive with one woman under 33, or I should say one woman under 32, one just under 33, and then Lauren Griffith just over 33 minutes. All of those would have been top 10 times last year, and an impressive showing here in the second race of this season.
I don't really even know what to say, man. Like, she's so good. And it's like, it's early days of these sports in DEKA FIT and High Rocks, but it's hard to imagine in the future people coming along and being better than this. It's just unreal. Every year, it's the same thing. You see other athletes get hype. Lauren comes into form and just crushes everybody. It's ridiculous.
And it's not like we see Lauren at every DEKA FIT, right? She's just so fit, so experienced, winning High Rocks majors, building for High Rocks World Championship. Yeah, let me dip down and do a shorter, sharper race in DEKA FIT and just set a world record along the way.
Honestly, if she chose to, she could take another 30 seconds off this with some focus. No lie, like you look at a few of the stations where she lost, 20 seconds. I think she lost 20 seconds on sled push and pull. Like, there's a lot of room to make up time that she's just not really focusing on it. She just has it in the bag. So, yeah, that's just wild. Just to step in and be like, I'll probably try to break the world record today. Why not?
And our takeaway from the men's race was how smooth Issac Sanderson looked, and he ended up running 29:40 something, a very solid time. Less than 10 guys have ever done that. And then Lauren one ups it by looking just as smooth, and let me go ahead and set a world record along the way. Just impressive.
Glenn Racz.
Now, speaking of impressive, joined by Glenn Racz, who worked his way into second place. A bit of a battle throughout most of that race. Glenn, how did it go for you?
Oh, it went well. Grayson went out pretty hard, and I knew Issac would. And but yeah, I was just trying to hang in there. I knew kind of where I'd be able to hang with the rower and stuff, and just tried to stick with the game plan. Try to keep under 31 minutes, which I barely did. But I think I passed him right before the bike, and just kind of held on from there. But it was nice to see when just able that you're redlining it from like zone 2, and so you just gotta hope that your just fitness holds up for the next 25 minutes or so.
Yeah, you're not the kind of athlete that backs down from anything. No matter where you are in the race, you're always like head down, pushing, and that's what makes you scary to race, man. No matter where you are, how much of a lead someone might have on you. You're never comfortable. Like, there's certain athletes that I've raced where I'm like, if I'm ahead of them, I'm comfortable. You're not that guy. So you're probably the scariest person to have hunting behind you. So once I saw you in in Farmer's Carry there, starting to catch him, putting the head down, I was like, he's gonna get him. Absolutely.
Yeah, it felt good. It's interesting how mentally when I saw him look back twice on the runs prior to the Farmer's Carry. And it's funny how that actually gave me that little push to be like, hey, he's a little scared, and I'm hurting, but they're hurting too. So and you just it's fun.
And
yeah.
you probably couldn't see it, but we were watching you guys finish up the assault bike, and Grayson kind of took a second and walked his way out of the station, whereas it looked like you were able to stay on it. And I think that was sort of what sealed the deal. So I guess for you, what were your expectations coming into this race? Did you have an idea of, I think you had mentioned trying to go sub 31, but was this about where you thought you were, or how are you kind of thinking about this in the context of the season?
Yeah, it is about where I thought I was. I got 30-50 at Dallas at World Champs 5 months ago or so. And after popping a decent 5K at Carlsbad 5000 2 weeks ago, 5 seconds faster than last year, I got a 15:53. So I felt that was a good, reassuring that, okay, I had some run fitness, and I know I've been training the zone. So I felt like with a little bit more strict requirements on like the burpees where you got to put all the way up, I'd say if I could stay within 10 seconds and stay under 31, that's kind of within my expectations. And I was hoping to stick a little closer to Isaac, but that dude, he's fit. So I'm just happy to be still seeing him in zone 10 when I got in there for like 2 seconds.
There you go. Well, awesome seeing you race as always.
Thanks,
Fighting
man.
for podiums. That's killer.
Woo!
So looking forward to seeing what you
that's
got
my
for the
best
rest of the
finish.
season.
Yeah, it's my best finish so far in a second, so I'm stoked. I'll be over at NorCal in 2 weeks, and so I'll probably see some more of these cyborgs, as we're called, in a couple weeks. So thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Glenn Racz, thanks for joining us. Second place in today's DEKA FIT. You heard it from him, his top finish ever, pretty close to the time that he was expecting. And like we said in the beginning, we might see some of these athletes in multiple races. We're going to get that for Glenn Racz, as he'll be towing the line in Sacramento in a couple of weeks.
I want to see a gold out of him in Sacramento. I want to see a dub, the Glenn Racz dub.
So here's a look at the men's results. Officially 29:41 for Issac Sanderson. So joining that select group that have gone sub 30. Glenn Racz just barely sneaking under the 31-minute mark. Grayson Kilgore about 13 seconds behind him. And then, as we talked about, a pretty nice grouping there in the middle of the pack between Joshua Gonzalez in 4th place, really all the way down, through the rest of this top 10. Less than a minute and a half separating those guys. But how about that 17:38 for Issac Sanderson? That's, where a lot of the race was made up.
That's killer, man. That's a pretty solid 5K standing alone. Veerman.
Hi.
Hey, man. Little OCR World Champion stopping by at the old DEKA FIT Arena. How? Give us a short cliff notes of the first DEKA FIT experience.
It was like a very, very challenging triathlon. Like, I felt like just the transition from the exercises to the running back, it was like, I don't know, for me it was a shock to the system, because I don't practice like the specific exercises or movements a whole lot, so I kind of relied on like my running fitness to take me so far. But I don't know, like some of these guys they're so fast, and for a while I was trying to keep up pace with them, but I realized like I needed to do my own thing. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty challenging, like a little different from OCR. The exercises they take definitely more of a toll on you if you don't practice the movements. But yeah, like I tried to do like some interval works, like 5K interval workouts and whatnot, and I figured like that could kind of get me in somewhat decent shape for something like this. But no, like you really got to practice like the movements themselves, and running in between, coming in and out of them. Specificity is like very, very important for this kind of thing.
I didn't even know you were here. Good job.
Hey, thank you. I was watching you. You look so fast.
Thank you.
So fast.
And
so
we
strong.
used to talk about compromised running in OCR. Like that was a really hot term for a little while. And what we've learned as hybrid has come along is that OCR is not compromised running at all. like doing monkey bars, that's not really compromising in the long term. But when you come in and you have to row a kilometer and then get back to running, that's a little bit of a different, and I'd say that's actual compromised running. So a lot of us that thought like, you know, I can hit obstacles and get back to running, that's just a developed skill set. That's not a different kind of fitness. So a lot of OCR athletes like myself and you, when we cross over, we get punched in the face pretty hard that first time learning like, oh, I can't really run the way that I would expect myself to be able to run. So, you know, props for coming out. I hope you come out for some more. And yeah, it takes a little bit of specificity to get good at this, but it's a blast, honestly, and I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, I might show up for the next DEKA FIT race, like in the series, because there's lots of opportunities where I could have saved some time, especially the minute penalty that I had towards the end, because I came into the burpees and I was thinking like, wow, I got here a little sooner than I should have. Like in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, I think I should have done an extra lap, and yep, turns out I missed a lap. So Yancey's just like, oh dude, you gotta get out, go do another lap. It's like, oh, all right.
Yeah, we were a little. We were a little confused at first because we saw you finish and then go the wrong way, and weren't sure if that was just an inexperienced thing or, as it turned out, the penalty. But we actually just heard from Glenn Racz a second ago, and he said he's coming out to the next race in Sacramento. So maybe you guys can throw down, and you'll have a little bit more experience under your belt for that one.
They haven't talked.
If I do come, I'm going to probably put in the next couple weeks and do a little bit more specific training for this. Because, yeah, like I said, I try to rely on more of my running fitness to get me through, like for OCRs and stuff. But for something like this, you got to be pretty specific. So, yeah, I think I'm going to come back, give it a go.
The experience goes a long way, man. Like my first DEKA FIT, I was in the 32s. And since then, I've been sub 31 each time. So it's like, there's a lot of growth from the first one. The first one, that's just a buy-in, all right? So the rest of them, then we can start judging you for real.
Yeah.
Well, good work today, brother.
Speaking of specific training, we are now joined by someone who is getting ready for High Rocks World Championship and also happened to throw down a world record today. So, Lauren, did you have an idea that was in the tank when you towed the line, or how did it play out in terms of what you were expecting today?
No, it's been a bit since I've done a DEKA, so I wasn't sure. It's definitely a different kind of fitness than if you were doing High Rocks. Very similar in terms of stations and running, but it's a lot higher pace with a DEKA FIT, and I wasn't quite sure that I was ready for that type of fitness. So when I stepped on the line, no, I was expecting to be battling it out with Vivian and Lauren probably the whole race.
You were just on your own for a while there. It looked like you were
for part of it. I got into the bike, and I had thank God, I had a good couple calories in on Vivian because she came in and hammered, gave me a nice good gust of wind. She picked the bike right next to me, and I think made up probably 10 calories. It was insane how fast she went.
That's awesome.
She did make up, I think, close to 20 seconds on that station. She made a really, really big move on that one.
Yeah, and I felt it because she came right next to me, and I almost wanted to turn to her and say thank you for the extra breeze.
Well, you looked really relaxed. We looked at the men's race. Issac was up front the whole time, and he looked like he could have been one of the slowest in each of the stations, yet his times were consistently the fastest. And we saw the same thing with you. Really relaxed, really managed efforts, just efficiency across the board, laying top times in almost every station. But then the running was so aggressive, and love to see it. Really impressed. Do you think your running has evolved in this season? Because I'm seeing a little bit of a change there, and it's looking ridiculously fast right now.
I'd say it's significantly evolved, not necessarily this season, but over this hybrid career that I've started. So I think I did my first High Rocks in 2019, and the runner that I was then compared to the runner that I am today is a drastic difference. And and it's taken a really long time. Like I've made slow improvements each year, and I'm 5 years in now, and I'm getting a little old, so I don't know how many years I have left in me, but I hope to progressively keep like improving specifically on that part of the running. I think as I'm aging, I might not be able to get stronger in terms of like I've built a lot of strength already up into the point where I am, but I do think I can progress like in running and endurance as I continue to get a bit older.
I think the ceiling is so high.
I was going to say it's impressive, that improvement in running, especially, coming from events where you're running for twice as long or in terms of distance and time, between stations. Obviously, DEKA stings a little bit differently with the quicker transitions, some of these quicker stations, but, you're able to just stay on it. And yeah, despite looking smooth, move quickly through everything. And it was impressive to watch.
Yeah, I've been slowly throwing myself into some like pure running races, like road races, to be able to learn pacing better, because it is something that I am not familiar with. I don't know where I should push and where I should back off and how hard I should go out. And I think doing that has helped me a lot in terms of, one, I'm learning what my body can do, but I also can watch all these seasoned runners within the race out on the road and how they're pacing it. So like I did a 15K 2 weeks ago, and I watched the guys who like crushed it go out at like a significantly slower pace than I would have ever expected. So just it's eye-opening to see how like real runners are pacing events, and I'm like slowly trying to like learn and adapt to that.
Developing the hybrid engine. Love it. Well,
yeah,
great work out there today. Very, very impressive. Just, hopping into a DEKA FIT for the first time in a while and popping a world record. Just really not letting Meg hold on to any of those. I don't know if it's personal or not, but good work.
I was not anticipating one today. When is your next one?
I was supposed to race this weekend, but I got a nice little ankle sprain. So I've been out of the running for a couple weeks here. Hopefully we'll get back on the course sometime soon. Really prepping for fall Hyrox season. That's kind of my next thing. So, yeah, get a healthy ankle, and then you'll see me out there.
We're excited to see it.
All right. Well, Lauren, Tyler, thanks so much for joining us. Congratulations, Lauren, on a world record. Tyler, good seeing you throw down for the first time, and hopefully we'll see both of you all soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and have Vivian snag a chair. Oh.
Welcome to the show.
Hey.
How are we feeling after
What's
burying
up?
yourself for 30 minutes? You guys recover so fast. You don't even look tired. It just went out for a little stroll.
Yeah, when you got another one later, you got to fake it till you make it.
Well, I feel like we have to tell the couch story from yesterday.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Me and Lauren brought it on the couch all day yesterday, and we got a message from Lauren Weeks, hey, do you guys want to come and do 24.1 with me at the gym? And we're like, what? And then we start sending pictures of me eating peanut butter pretzels on the couch, and Lauren's like...
Yeah. Bold of you to assume that we'd even be working out today.
Yeah.
No.
Lauren's like, this is why Lauren Weeks is better than us.
Yeah, she's out there doing more CrossFit workouts, and we're just eating peanut butter pretzels.
She had every excuse to go out there and go like a 35 today, and she's like, nah, I'm going to go 31.
Yeah, just break another record,
She's
as Lauren Weeks does.
Facts. Queen stays queen. Sorry.
Just accidentally stumbling into a world record. No big deal.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, early in the season, so I'm excited to see what happens during Worlds at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
Feel different.
Yeah.
So, you guys had a nice little battle going on out there. We enjoyed watching it. It looked really exciting. Each person, give me a little cliff notes, or you guys can tag team this. How was the race out there? Getting to race each other. Where'd you feel strong? Where'd you feel like you lost ground, made up ground? Give us a rundown.
Where did I feel strong? Nowhere. nowhere. I think I definitely got caught up trying to chase Lauren a little bit. I'm usually a lot more comfortable, like midway through the race. My skier did not feel great. And I had a very aggressive goal of what I wanted to hit on that assault bike. And 10 seconds in, I was like, this is not happening today. This is survival mode. Survival mode, that's what happened. So it was a character building race is how I feel about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that any part of that felt great. But that was kind of the goal for me today, was just go hard, see how much I could keep up with Lauren. We both got High Rocks Worlds coming up too, and leading up to some of those big races, it's more just how much can you bury yourself and try to finish as strong as possible, because it's not going to feel great at the end of any race. So just getting used to the discomfort of it, and I think it worked out fairly well for both of us.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's a workout.
Yeah, Vivian passed me fairly early on, and from there it was just catch up.
I know.
As much as possible.
I was like, I feel like this is a mistake, but we're going to roll with it.
I know, that assault bike, though, it just wrecks you.
So bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
You can't all be Kevin.
Yeah, that's right. Now we have teams. My calves are like cramping. I'm very scared to run fast. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to break. That's not for me. It's not for me.
Yeah, so we all got a throwdown again. Sorry.
I think you did make up 20 seconds on Lauren in that assault bike. So it worked to a certain degree. We made up a lot of time, and it looked very impressive.
For the first maybe 20 seconds, and then I was like, I think I hit like 900 watts in like the first 10 seconds, and then I got down to under 300, and I was like, we just got to finish this now. We just gotta make 25, and I hopped out, and I was probably making all sorts of faces on the next run. It was not a good time.
Just came out nice jelly-legged.
Yeah, that's how it felt.
Yeah, Lauren said she appreciated the breeze when you hopped on and started hammering it. And so maybe you might be solely responsible for cooling her down a little bit. Yeah, helping that world record.
I'll take that credit. That's great.
So I guess, what's it like, you guys both said that, hey, coming in, Lauren Weeks is going to be here. She obviously was doing a CrossFit workout the day before, which puts her on a slightly different frame of mind coming in. But, trying to see how long you could stay with her, when you get toward the middle point of the race, and it does look like, okay, she's pulling away a little bit, but I've got someone sort of with me. Does your mindset change at all, kind of with maybe what you were trying to do coming in versus where you found yourself, around the halfway point of the race?
Yeah, I mean, it's always just kind of like, the mental game of how much you can almost trick yourself into going harder. No matter if someone's in front of you, if someone's right behind you, or if you're kind of in a no man's land and no one's around you, you've always got to try to find some way to just keep pushing harder, because it's not always guaranteed that someone's going to be right next to you or right behind you, right in front.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience of how long can I stay with Lauren Weeks? Oh, there she goes. Bye. And then just trying to struggle or stay on or be in no man's land. I definitely enjoy having somebody around me to kind of pace off of. That's always nice, but you just, like Lauren said, it's just really we do this all the time, just trying to see how much you can push yourself every day, not every day, but every workout, every hard workout that you're doing. You just got a lot of practice in the pain cave, and this is a great opportunity. Honestly, I was just really happy to be here because I wanted a nice little taper week. So I was just very happy that I got to relax this week leading up to this race. So that's what I was looking forward to. It was just a nice relaxed week, because I think we've all been really grinding on the way to High Rocks World. So yeah, that's just kind of how we roll.
All right, so last question for you. Speaking of High Rocks Worlds, we're prepping for High Rocks training, more that longer, grindier kind of feel. How does jumping into a DEKA Fit, how does the sting of this event kind of hit you compared to some of the grindier training and what the racing at High Rocks kind of feels like?
Oh, it always hurts, no matter what the distance. This one's just kind of like you start feeling it a lot sooner than you probably anticipate, because, I don't know, the runs in a High Rocks start out fast, but this is also you're fast into something, and then you're out on another run before you know it, and you're still trying to push a pace. So for me, it still is going to hurt, and just trying to switch into the mindset of like, okay, you just got to make it like 35 minutes. That's what you got to do, and then you can be done. And just trying to grind through it.
Yeah, I feel like Hyrox like ebbs and flows a little bit more. Like you kind of, this is more of like a consistent pain. Like there's no real like stations that really stop you like the sleds might, or like there's no prolonged like row where you kind of get to reset a little bit. So I think this is more of like a steady acute pain versus that's just a little bit more grindy. I wanted to do this just to see kind of where my speed was at running wise. Like that's something that says about this is it's a little bit more like fast paced on the running. So like that was kind of what I did as far was to see like where my running's at, because the running's more, the speed I think is more critical than the Hyrox. We're not running as fast in Hyrox as we are here. So I think it's a nice little like speed check to see where your legs are at, and then Hyrox you just kind of add in those heavier stations, and it's a little bit more of like an endurance or muscular endurance type race.
Yeah, and our seasons are so long that at this point, like this is a great tune-up race for something like that in June for the Worlds, and then it's nice to have another kind of build up leading into the DEKA Worlds towards the end of the year, where you can start getting like more of the faster underneath you. But this is just like, it's really great tune-up, kind of seeing where your fitness is at and starting to dial it down on things. And we'll be at it again at the end of the year for another big comp for this.
Fun. We love it. Suffering.
Well, not bad to have a tune-up where you end up on the podium. Lauren, Vivian, great job. It was fun to watch. We'll look forward to seeing you both at Hyrox and of course in the DEKA FIT space later on this year.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Well, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, nice having that sort of double-barreled interview. I think we didn't have that for the Knoxville race. The surprise of, we have that little window on our screen and we're not there, so we don't necessarily know who's coming up next. But nice surprises with Lauren and Tyler, and then obviously Lauren and Vivian. So yeah, that was fun. A great battle. On the women's side, we saw an impressive showing from Issac Sanderson as well. Here's a look at the results today, and how about that 17:51 combined run time for Lauren Weeks? I mean, that right there tells you where her running is at heading into Hyrox World Championships. As we talked about, we heard from her, first woman under 32.
That was, Issac was like 17:35 or something like that. So that's not that far off. That's impressive. 17:38, even less gap right there. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And that's, again, for either of them without anyone else to pace off of. So just, their own running, their own fitness. And yeah, Lauren, it's scary that she is now improving and learning how to pace her runs, because where she's at already is on another level from almost anyone else on the planet. And if she's continuing to level up, then we're in for some special stuff, whenever she steps on a hybrid course.
Yeah, it's really impressive to see her evolution since we first kind of got a glimpse of her. And she's always been at the top from the start, but now she's not just maintaining, but improving every season, like she was talking about, and kind of identifying where she thinks what her strengths are, and really focusing on those weaknesses to where she's going to be. For a while, it was like when Meg came in, we were like, oh, Meg has that running ability. She's going to be the best runner in the field. And Lauren's really dialed in that side of her game. So now she's arguably the best runner in the field. She's the best at everything. And that's a real, scary thing to see. Someone that has just, become the best at every discipline throughout the entire event. Yeah, it's really impressive. So I hope we get to see more Lauren Weeks later this year. And see her attend the World Championships this time. Hopefully it's not on the same weekend as another High Rocks major or something like that, so we get to see some of these High Rocks athletes come over to the DEKA World. But yeah, incredible women's race, a nice start to the season for Issac as well. So yeah, dude, I'm stoked on the weekend.
Absolutely, and it's just beginning. We'll have teams coverage later on today coming up here on the OCR Report, but VJ, would have loved to see you out on the course today. I'm sure we'll be seeing you soon once that ankle gets right, but appreciate you coming on, joining us today, and that's going to just about do it for our broadcast this morning. As we said, great showing from Issac Sanderson, a solid battle between Glenn Racz and Grayson Kilgore, and on the women's side, what more can you say about a world record and then a throwdown between Lauren Griffith and Vivian Tafuto. So that's going to just about do it. I want to thank Jason Dupree on scene in Anaheim, making it happen behind the scenes, as well as all of our rabbits giving us the great coverage on course as well. And how can we forget Jack Bauer with his work to organize the fields and get us the information that we need to make us sound smart on the broadcast, talking through these athletes and their PRs and times and history in the sport. So again, we'll see you here on the OCR Report a bit later today for team coverage, and of course the next DEKA FIT coming up in a couple of weeks from Sacramento. But until then, for VJ Jones, I'm Xander Keene. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.